everybody, this is Val. This is my second recording of this video because the first one, my new microphone, I accidentally had the echo on it, and I was like, well, maybe I'll just like play this in, I'll just post this anyhow with the echo. But I like you all too much to do that because that would be really annoying, and I can just do the whole video again because I am what's known as a professional. But thank you for tuning in. Um, as the title of this video indicates, I'm going to tell you, it's story time now, and I'm going to tell you the story of the worst day I've ever had in my life, which was not recently. No, in fact, it was almost 20 years ago. But the preface of this story will be what's happened recently. So what happened recently is that I had this, like a couple weeks ago, I had this sort of proactive, very positive, gung-ho feeling of, you know what, I'm going to the doctor, getting everything optimized, getting everything checked out, I'm going to be really healthy, blah, 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 everything like that. And, as what happens sometimes with this type of, admittedly positive uh, gung-ho sort of enterprise, Pandora's boxes can open. When you have like a whole bunch of different tests with your doctor, Pandora's boxes can open, and they opened. I'm fine-ish. I and I had like a bunch of standard tests, and I was really worried about some of them, and then some of them I knew exactly what she was gonna, the doctor was gonna tell me, and so basically the ones I was really worried about were fine. The ones I was really worried about, this particular run of tests, were fine, but the ones that I knew were gonna be crap were crap, which was basically what was like my blood and cholesterol and blood sugar level was dog shit. Like the next time I can have like a sugary cupcake is never o'clock, basically. And so that's all gonna be, it's like, we're gonna put you on medication now for that stuff. And I knew it was coming, and it's fine. I'm not complaining about it. It's totally, I'm very privileged to have insurance and things like that to get this checked out, which is great. But I guess in the midst of all these different tests, like all these sort of old traumas came back from this incident I had about almost 20 years ago in 2006, and I only realized like a few days ago that was really the thing that was weighing on my mind, because like I was like, oh, I don't understand why I'm feeling so down. Like I'm getting all this stuff done, and I'm really optimizing. I'm really everything, like I'm you go girl and everything. Why am I feeling such dread? And I think it all came to a head this Monday when I was like about to taking my first like women's multivitamin, per suggestion from like doctor's office and whatever. And I took it, and then within like and just these are the multivitamins. Not dissing this brand, but this is what I took. So Monday morning, I took that, and then like within 5 minutes, I glanced at my visage in the mirror, and I had that Homer Simpson yell, like yelp. I'm talking like bah! Because that whole part of my eye was it basically looked like I was punched in the eye. It was, the eye itself wasn't bloodshot, but right under the eye, like over here, it was completely bloodshot, like I had been punched in the face. And I was already worrying at that point about these test results because I still hadn't gotten them yet. And it was like, and then I saw that under my eye, and I just, I've needless to say, ruined my day. And I had these really highfalutin goals for every week. Like, so this week was supposed to be going to the eye doctor to get new glasses, and going to the hair salon to get like, my hair styled and stuff. And I had to cancel that stuff because I had this big bloody thing. I guess they call it an allergic shiner. It's like an allergy, but it's an allergic reaction, but it looks like you've been punched in the eye. So it's like I had that thing, and and I put some makeup on it now, but I think it's still noticeable or whatever, but it's fading out. But anyway, like it was just, everything came to a head on Monday. I was just like, oh my God. Like, oh my God. And so I had to like, where's a lot of this anxiety and everything coming from? And I realized, like, at the end of the week, on the 26th, it would be like the 19th anniversary of the worst thing that ever happened to me, which is also a medical thing. And I'm going to tell you that story now, but I'm going to tell you the Reader's Digest version because this is YouTube. And at some point, I would love to do the sort of beat poet dramatic reading of this whole incident. Where I get into all the details, but I don't think in YouTube I can do it. But I should say, to preface this whole thing, like, definitely trigger warning, like, trigger warning in every which way, like, if this trigger warning, drive away if this is, whatever. But I'm going to tell the story of the worst thing that ever happened to me in my life. And I do have to also mention there have been a number of worse things that have happened to me in my life, but this one wins by sheer, the technical, the technical details of it. Because in this worst thing that ever happened to me in my life, I literally almost died. Not like I literally, hand to God, almost died. So that's why it wins that contest, my personal contest for the worst thing that ever happened. Now I'm gonna tell you a story. So picture it. It's spring of 2006. And I'm feeling great. I'm feeling great. Like, I'm looking really good. I was like a size 2. I was like really I had consciously, spent the last few years like really getting over a bunch of insecurities I had about my appearance and about dating and about sex and about all these different things. And I was really like, you go girl, really just seizing life, all that sort of living my best life, all that sort of stuff. This triumphant, right? So I meet a guy at a comic book convention, and it was a comic book artist, and he will be forever nameless. But I met him, and we're like, oh, let's start dating. And so, we're dating, whatever. And so it's like the second or third day that we are together, and we are doing things, at his apartment that adults do. Nothing freaky, just straight up, just regular things that two adults do. Because this is YouTube and this is how we're going to say it. And had a freak accident in the middle of that. And I had massive internal bleeding. I had a tear, a torn artery, and massive internal bleeding. And don't know exactly how that happened, but it did. And we were both kind of like, is this really happening? And apparently it was. And so then they called the EMTs, and then police came, which was real fun. And they were trying to figure out what happened. And they're like, wondering if they, like they kind of like are starting to rough up my boyfriend and everything like that. Cause they're like, well, what happened here? And I'm trying to say, oh, is this regular? Nothing freaky. Is this regular? And so anyway, so they're taking me away and rushing me to the hospital. That luckily was only like about a block and a half away. And I was told later that had we not been at his apartment, there was a block and away from the hospital, I would have been dead because I was bleeding out that fast. I was bleeding out that fast and I would have been dead. Like, I had an apartment in Queens at the time, the boonies of Queens. If we had been at my apartment doing this and then we had this freak accident, I'd have been long dead. So they're rushing me to the hospital and they put me in the intake room and I'm just like out there, like, as you can imagine, right? And if you're confused as exactly what had happened, because I'm just trying to be, I feel like YouTube is going to just shut this video down or something. Like basically I had a cervical tear. I had a cervical tear, a freak cervical tear, medical thing. And I'm in the intake room of this major metropolitan hospital, and they can't and they're just like, they can't believe this has happened. They can't believe that, like, it's just like a curiosity. So at first, you have the basic people who are there in the intake room, like the doctors and nurses, but then it's like more and more people are coming in. And like, because apparently, like on the floor, like it like this freak accident, you won't believe this. And so now there's like 50 effing people in the intake room. And I'm just like this, apparently bleeding to death. And they're all just like, I can't believe this happened. It's like, and you've got like, the orderly or whatever just strolling in there eating a donut, and everyone's just like, oh my goodness. And meanwhile, I'm like, here's the thing. I'm normally a very anxiety prone person. I normally, worry about a lot of things I shouldn't worry about. But when I'm in an actual life and death situation, I become really calm. I become like a comedian. And so I was just like cracking jokes, like, like, so I'm not crying, I'm not anything. I'm just like, and meanwhile, I'm bleeding to death. I was literally bleeding to death, and they're just trying to figure out. And so then finally, they're taking me into surgery, and apparently, so I'm out of surgery, and I'm sleeping on the ward there, and apparently, I lost so much blood that my blood pressure level on all my vitals were like dipping in the middle of the night, and I had nurses next to me on the bed while I'm on the bed looking at the vitals, and they're crying. The nurses are, because they think they're going to lose me in the middle of the night, because they just, I mean, this is why this is the worst thing that ever happened to me in my life, because I mean, there's no comparison. And so, it's touch and go, and then finally, oh, did I mention that this all happened when I was in between jobs and health insurance? So yeah, so like I had a like about $100,000 combined bill. I remember they would charge me for every swab of what was it, gauze. I remembered it itemized on my thing. They would, and at one point when I was like like resting the second day or whatever, they were asking me if I wanted more gauze because that would cost extra. And I was like, no. It's like I just want to go home. And they let me out. A doctor later on, like later that week, was angry that they had let me out and didn't give me a blood transfusion for whatever reason, because he said like I had extremely low blood in my system. And I felt terrible. Like I felt that like when I left the hospital, like I was just, it was, my body was just a complete mess. But yeah, on top of all that trauma and everything, I owed like about $100,000, of which my boyfriend had the opinion. I'm not slagging him or anything like that. Like, this is not a anything like this blame the dude in this video. But it was just sort of like he was just like, well, but I mean, it kind of happened to your body. So I don't really know if I should be really paying for any of it, because it was on. He did end up giving me $300 towards a $100,000 bill, which is great. No, but it's great. No, but that wasn't the worst thing. That wasn't the worst thing at all, because, so this thing happened, and instead of me being like, I need time to process this extreme trauma, not just trauma of the accident, the nature of the accident itself, but the fact that I almost died. Instead of processing, it's like Lucas still, processing it, I decided I was just going to be in denial that, like that I'm stronger than that. I'm going to be strong, and I'm not going to let this push me away from my you go girl, peak lady period of my life and everything like that. Certainly wasn't going to let it like discourage me from having further things with the two adults have. I was like, this is, but that was like apparently it was just like the worst thing I could have possibly done was not face that. And so instead of facing that, like me and my boyfriend, like, we're actually going to be closer. We're actually going to we're gonna pretend this didn't happen. We're just going to be strong, and we're just going to, and that was a terrible decision. I mean, ultimately, the terrible decision on my part, should not have done that at all. But it was like, I'm going to be, whatever. So yeah, that was the worst experience of my life, and I had complications from it, and I was, like I said, I was in serious debt, and I had, I guess, all this. And it's funny because, like, I think I've said in an earlier video, like, I've had in my life, like, been accused of, like, having, like, slight, like, asexual overtones, and it's not because of this incident, necessarily. I had those overtones before this incident. But after this incident, I was just kind of like, well, that didn't make it any better. Because like I'm asking myself, I'm asking God, like I tried for a number of years so hard to really get this whole woman positive, sex positive, everything attitude, and just just all the stuff. I was working so hard. I read so many self-help books, therapy, everything. That's like, yeah. Like why did this happen? Why did a freak accident of this nature happen to me? Why? Shouldn't that have not have happened? Shouldn't it have been like, yeah, and then it's, I got all this confidence and everything like that, and then it was just great. Oh, by the way, if you see there's this bruise in my arm, it's because I had blood test last Thursday, and they got the wrong vein at first, and so that's another thing. It's that in the eye. But anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that like I was just like, why did this happen to me? And for years after that, I just pretended like this had never kind of happened, like that I wasn't impacted by it at all, this accident. And I even had written about it publicly on a blog post like months after it happened, and apparently like this is like another story. I'll tell a story time for another day. It's just like my blog somehow became viral, and like one of the things that become viral was this story, in much more graphic detail than I'm saying here. And I would joke about it, it was just sort of like I can't even do the joke. I can't do any of it, but it was that we'll do that at the dramatic reading. But even though I was really open about it, I still hadn't processed it. And so then I think I went to the doctor and just a week ago, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like I just the thing that had happened 19 years ago, that I really failed to process it fully, and that I think there's a well-known self-help book called The Body Keeps the Score. I don't remember the name of the author, but it's basically the body is still like the body. Pepperidge Farm remembers, like you're just going like everything is. And I'll give you the metaphor for it is this. I was working at the Better Business Bureau at the time, part-time, and they were lovely people, by the way, and I was working for them, but I was out because I had almost died. So I was coming back that Monday or Tuesday, the next week, and to tell them what had happened. I didn't, I felt like I couldn't say what had happened. Like that was the other thing. I felt like what had happened to me, I had almost died, but it was such a strange way that I didn't want to tell people. And so I said to them I had gotten my tonsils out. And clearly, this whole situation was not getting my tonsils out. But I don't know if anybody listening here has ever had situations, not exactly like what I'm talking about, but just like these things where like they impact your life, they give you a lot of trauma. You don't know how to talk about it with anybody. And it's like, and even if you had to sort of give a reason while you were not doing well or just whatever, you wouldn't say because I'm, reliving this trauma, I had this happen to me. Like you'll just use the euphemism like, I had my tonsils out. Everybody has their tonsils out. That's all. I'm just a little down under the weather because my tonsils were taken out. Did you ever have had anything like that? Like, where it's just sort of, and I'm not saying this like I'm a, I don't have the golden answer for you. Like I'm some type of like a psychologist. I don't know. I'm on some sort of like Abbott and Costello Three Stooges riff. So I'm just, ignore me, please. But I'm not a psychologist. So, but I'm just saying like these things, the body keeps a score, like, you think you're doing fine, and this was something in the rear view mirror, and then you will have a panic attack, or you will have this physical reaction, or you will just whatever, and you're like, oh. So welcome to TMI YouTube. But yeah, so anyway, I just needed to come here and just discuss all this, just because I guess if you want to know what the takeaway I have from this week, from the last couple weeks, from feeling kind of miserable and just thinking about stuff and everything, and like thinking of, just these past events and everything, my takeaway has been that I need to keep being real. I need to keep being real. I need to talk about real stuff. I need to talk about how I dealt with real stuff. And I can't say that, I had my tonsils taken out for everything. Like, oh, my tonsils were taken out. Now, yeah, this. I can't do it. And here's the thing. I'm a weird case because I guess like I'm a motor mouth and I'm Jokey McJokerson. And so like I have a dark sense of humor, and I've always kind of like TMI'd, and so I don't mind discussing this stuff, and but not everybody is like that. Nor should everybody be like that, and nor should necessarily this is stuff that we're regular to me. Like, if you're following this YouTube channel, this is not going to be like super general, like, just like stuff on your feed, like content. This is going to be me, right? So you know what you're getting into, especially after this video. You know what you're getting into watching my channel. But like stuff like X and Facebook and different things, for a lot of people, this is not the place where they want to discuss stuff like this, nor should it be if you feel uncomfortable with it. But I'm the type of person, like, I just like talking about stuff. I just like, like I grew up, really idolizing certain radio hosts and different things and comedians. And so like and if me talking about these different things helps other people in some way, just wrap their heads around stuff or whatever, awesome. Because at least there was some good with it. At least some good came from all of this. Because like I said, like when I had this accident, I just kept asking God, like, why did this happen? Like, why did this happen? This was not how the story was supposed to go. Why did this happen? And I've asked myself, why did this happen about a bunch of things in my life? And I think maybe there is no good real answer. Maybe I'm just looking for a consolation prize or whatever, consolation explanation, the consolation explanation, consolation prize or whatever. But I think part of it has to be at least to talk to you and discuss this stuff. And next video we may just look at my collection of Roblox toys and something, or DVDs or something completely different. I don't know, but sometimes we'll just have these conversations, whatever. So thank you for listening, and I invested all this money on this microphone and other stuff, so I'm gonna have to do some videos again soon to just make up for this investment. So I'm trying to say is you're stuck with me, unless you unsubscribe, which after this video you may do. Anyway, but hope you're all well, and thank you for listening again, and talk to you later. Bye.